We're going to finish up 7.3, and we're going to be on page 204 of your student journal. We are now going to find the product and quotient of these. All right, so if you remember how you multiply fractions, you just multiply straight across. So when I look at this, I'm just going to multiply the top. Basically, I'm just going to connect these into one, but I'm going to combine stuff. So I'm going to have 3xy squared and 2x squared, because I have two of them, y squared. And now, doing the same thing that we did in video 1, we're going to look for what we can simplify. So I see 2y squared, and everything's getting multiplied together, so I can reduce everything. So I see a y squared and a y squared. Those can go away to equal 1. And then I see an x up here that can get canceled with one of these x's. And so I'm left with 3 over 2x. And I'm going to look for my restrictions. So if I look back at my original problem and this one, x is not going to be able to equal 0, and y cannot equal 0, because if either one of those equals 0, since this is all multiplied together, I would have a 0 on the bottom of my fraction. So there's your answer. We're going to move down to 8, and then we'll come back to all the division ones. So 8 is another multiplication or product one. Instead of multiplying these polynomials together, we're actually going to just factor them separately, because if I put them all together, that's going to be not fun to reduce in order to cross things out. So this is adding and subtracting stuff in here, so I need to make sure that I'm factoring everything out. So let's look at this first one. I'm going to just do x's right on top, and all my a's are 1 for these, so I don't have to worry about any of the boxes. And then that one I'm actually going to do something different with. So first one is 1 times -3 is -3 and -2 on the bottom. Multiplies to be -3 would be 3, -3 and 1. Yep. And I'm actually going to write these out as we do this. So on the top, I'm going to have x minus 3 and x plus 1. So that is from this first one. And I'm just going to keep going. So I'm going to have -63 and -2. And that's going to be 9 and 7 are 2 apart, and I want the bigger one to be negative. So my other part of my numerator is going to be x minus 9 and x plus 7. So that's all that multiplication on the top. All my factors are right there. All right, I'm going to move to the bottom, and I have -21 and 4, which is going to give me 7 and 3. The 7's bigger, so I want the 3 to be the negative. And that's going to be x plus 7 and x minus 3. And then this one, I don't have a GCF, but I do notice that this is a perfect square, meaning I can do a little shortcut with this one if you want to. So if this is a perfect square, and this is a perfect square, and this is a subtraction in between, in order to get the x squared, these would have to be x's. In order to get the 1, the square root of 1 would be 1 and 1. And in order for the middle to cancel, 1 would have to be an addition, and 1 would have to be a subtraction. And that is also, that rule is also on your factoring sheet that you should have gotten at the beginning of class. All right, so let's put those in here. So once you get it factored, you have a bunch of parentheses, and you're just looking for parentheses that are the same. So I have x minus 3's, I have x plus 1's, I have x plus 7's. So the only ones that do not cancel on the top is the x minus 9, and on the bottom is x minus 1. Now for my restrictions, I'm going to have a ton because I want everything on the bottom. So let me actually get a highlighter. This was at the bottom, this was at the bottom, this was at the bottom, and that was at the bottom. So I need 4 restrictions. X cannot equal, let's see, the first one would be a -1. The second one would be 1. -7, and 3 would be all my restrictions, because if I plugged any of those numbers in there, that bottom would turn to a 0. And you can't divide by 0. All right, let's do one more multiplication. Number 9. All right, so I see squared, and then I see some 3s in here that we're going to have to watch out for. So let's see if GCF will work first, which if I look at this, they both have an X in them, so I can do GCF for this first one. So I'm going to pull out the X, and then I have an X left at the beginning, and I have a -2 left there. This one is already factored, so that I can just leave alone. So this one's done already. And then I've got these. If you remember your perfect cube for these ones, let me write these down for you. You can look at your sheet, but I'll write it down right here so that we have it. If these can both be cubed rooted, so this obviously can, and then 8, 2 to the 3rd root, we can use the addition in between. So we have a to the 3rd plus b to the 3rd, and then my rule, again from your sheet, is this. So I can follow through with this. This has to be written 3rd power. So x to the 3rd power, which means x is my a value, and then plus 2 to the 3rd would be my 8. So 2 is going to be my b value, and I'm just going to follow through with this. So a was x, so x plus 2. And then in the parentheses, I'm going to have a squared, which is really x squared, minus a times b, which is 2x, plus b squared, which would be 2 times 2, which would be 4. That is what that would be factored out. So let's go ahead and write that above this. So I have x plus 2, and then x squared minus 2x plus 4. And then when I look down here, I see a 3rd, so I'm thinking I might have to do that again, but then I see an x here, so I can just do GCF for this one. So I'm going to pull out an x from both of them, and then I'd be left with an x squared minus 4. And then I'm looking at this and noticing that these are perfect squares again. So it's that same rule that I just used, let's see, on the other problem. So I can factor this just a little bit more. So I'm going to keep that x out front. And then again, I noticed that these were squared and that this was a negative in between. So x times x would get me the x squared. And then 2 times 2 would give me the 4. And the middle is gone, so I need 1 to be a plus and 1 to be a minus. Let's list all of these out. So on the top, I'm going to have x minus 2, and then x plus 2, and then x squared minus 2x plus 4. On the bottom, I have x plus 7 times x times x squared minus, oops, sorry, not x squared. I use this one, x plus 2 and x minus 2. Whew, this is a big one. All right, let's start canceling things out. So I see that this x in this x, and again, this is all multiplication. There's no adding outside of the parentheses. So this x will go with this x. This x plus 2 will go with this x plus 2. And then the x minus 2, and then x minus 2. And I'm left with, on the top, x squared minus 2x plus 4. And on the bottom, I'm left with x plus 7. And then we need to make sure that we have our restrictions on here. So x is not allowed to equal. And if I go back up, I have these 4 things on the bottom that I need restrictions for. So x cannot equal -7, 0, positive 2 or a negative 2. And there we go. Pause the video anytime you need more time. All right, we're going to go up to 6. This is division now. When we think about dividing fractions, we need to think about multiplying by the reciprocal instead. So let's rewrite this as a multiplication problem. So the first fraction will stay the same. So I have x plus y over 7xy times, I'm going to flip this one around. So y is going to go on top and 4x is going to go on the bottom. And then I'm going to push these together. So this is multiplication now, so I can just multiply the top and multiply the bottom. So on the top, I'm going to have y times all of this. There's an addition in here, so I need to make sure that I put this in parentheses. Over, no addition, so I can just put this stuff together. So this is going to be 28. I have 2 x's and I have a y. Now I could factor this out, but I'm going to notice that I have a y here that's going to cancel with that y anyway, so I'm just going to leave it separated. So the only thing is this y and that y. So on the top I have x plus y, and then the bottom I have 28x squared. There's an addition on the top, so this is technically in parentheses. There's no set of parentheses on the bottom that matches, so I'm done. And then look out for your restrictions. So x cannot be 0 because I don't have any parentheses on the bottom. It's just all multiplied together, so it just can't be a 0. And I also have a y that cannot be 0. So those are my 2 restrictions. Hopefully you wrote small. I should have warned you because there is a lot on these problems. All right, number 7. Oh, you're going to love these problems when they're already factored for you. It's like glorious. So I see the division in between. I need to change that to multiplication before I start. So I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So let's rewrite this with the first one stays where it's at. So it's going to be x and then x plus 1 on the top. And I'm actually just going to put this all together all at once. And then on the bottom, I'm going to put this in parentheses, x minus 2. And then these are going to flip. So the bottom is going to go to the top. And the top is going to go to the bottom. Perfect. All factored out, so we don't have to worry about that. We can just start crossing stuff out. So I don't have another x. I do have an x plus 1. And I have an x minus 6. And that's it. So I'm going to have x and then x minus 9. And I'm going to have x minus 2. And there's my answer. For the restrictions for this one, it's a little tricky. So this is on the bottom, this is on the bottom, and this is on the bottom. But you flipped it around so that these were also on the bottom. So you need to have all of those restrictions. So the first one is going to be that x cannot be 2. X cannot be 6 or 9. And then up here, x can't be negative 1, and then x can't be 6. But we already have that one written down, so we don't have to write it down twice. So you're going to, again, have 4 restrictions for that one. All right, I'm going to actually have you guys try 10 by yourself. So for number 10, I'm going to have you pause it. Nothing is factored for you, so I want you to be very careful. I would, when you're doing 4, I would factor this one, factor this one, factor this one, factor this one, then worry about the flip and rewriting. Okay, so pause it and then push play to see the answer. All right, here's, excuse me, here is number 10, all of this on the bottom. So you can see my factors all along the top, all along the bottom. I wrote them all out after I flipped this around and then crossed everything out, and I was only left with x minus 3 and x minus 1. And then my restrictions came from my bottoms originally and after the flip. So that's why there's 4 of those restrictions on there. Jot down any questions that you have that we can answer as a class. Otherwise, nice job.